All right. Welcome, everyone, to our July 2nd meeting of the Sutton Zoning Board of Appeals. Just want to check in, make sure everyone's here. Rich?
Here.
Dan?
Here.
Kyle? Kyle's not here this evening. Jim?
Here.
And Chris?
Here.
All right. Thank you. As a preliminary matter, obviously we're conducting this meeting remotely through the Zoom app. We have a phone number also, 929-205-6099, which is our call-in number for those of us who can't join us on Zoom. This open meeting of the Zoning Board of Appeals is being conducted remotely, consistent with Governor Baker's executive order of March 12, 2020, due to the current state of emergency in the Commonwealth due to the outbreak of the COVID-19 virus. In order to mitigate the transmission of the COVID-19 virus, we have been advised and directed by the Commonwealth to suspend public hearings, and as such, the governor's order suspends the requirement of the open meeting law to have all meetings in publicly accessible physical location. Further, all members of the public bodies are allowed and encouraged to participate remotely. The order, which you can find posted with agenda materials for this meeting, allows public bodies to meet entirely remotely, so long as reasonable public access is afforded so the public can follow along with the deliberations of the meeting. Ensuring public access does not ensure public participation unless such participation is required by law. This meeting will feature public comment if there's anyone wishing to do so. And that's about it, I guess. So at this point, I'd entertain a motion to reopen our hearing.
That's on 21 West Sutton Road, 21.5 West Sutton Road, Rick?
That is correct. The petition of Stage 1 investors.
I will make the motion to reopen the hearing for 21.5 Sutton Road, West Sutton Road.
I'll second that.
All right, all those in favor will read out. Rich?
Aye.
Dan?
Aye.
Jim?
Aye.
Chris?
Aye.
And I'm an aye also. All right, Bob, welcome back. And you've provided us with some more material, if you'd like to go over that now. Bob, you're still muted.
You're unmuted.
All right,
Okay.
Bob, welcome back.
I'm gonna try to unmute him.
You provided us with some more material.
Can you hear me? I don't know if they can hear me. Oh, yeah.
Yep.
I got a note.
Yeah, Bob, I unmuted you, so you're good.
Okay.
I would just ask if folks aren't talking, can they mute themselves so we can hear Bob?
Can you hear me? I don't know if they can hear me. Yeah.
Okay, I think we're good, Bob.
Going in and out a little bit. Okay, if you're ready. At the last public hearing or meeting that we had, there was some additional information requested, which I submitted. I had the architect draft the elevation views of the building. I had sent them out. He sent them to me as a PDF, so I believe you received copies of that. Also, I revised the landscaping plan to show the topography. Okay, this is the building elevations here. That looks like a floor plan. Sheet 2, I believe, is east and west. Although they are light. They're light on the screen, but they're there. I believe sheets 2 and 3 show the 4 sides of the building. Basically, what we've done is to reduce the elevation of the building by lowering the floor the way we discussed at the previous meeting. What we did do was regrade a landscaping plan. I don't know if you have a copy of the landscaping plan, but that really, that really tells a story. What we did on the retaining wall on the north side, abutting the property by Engstrand, we took a complete series of blocks off the top of the wall, and what we did was look at the elevations of the septic system. We lowered the grades as significantly near the house, and that allowed us to not need to put in a stairway. If you look at the grading just north of the septic tank, you'll see that we cut the grading down. So there's actually a high point over the septic system, and then it drops down toward the building. What that does is it allows you to have a door coming out, a regular doorway coming out, but you don't have to have steps. You will have to walk up. You'll have to walk up a slope, but it'll be a grass slope instead of steps. That was one change. Another note that we added is to have English ivy growing on both sides of the wall on the north and south side, and also along the southern side where the wall abuts Grange, I believe. It's number 23. We added roses in there because it's the southern side. You'd have more light. The idea was to reduce the impact of the wall by covering it with vegetation. Those are the major changes on the landscape plan itself, but the landscape plan shows the topography. We've also put the door on the front side of the building facing the street, and the stairway has been altered. The stairway from the parking area has been altered so that you walk into the front door. You walk down a flight of steps, you go into the front door. Or you could walk down the side steps and walk down to the landscaping along the side of the building. But the main doorway is now facing the street. And those are the major changes to that. What we also did on the architectural plans, we show the roof line has been reduced by having more of a how could I say? Well, it's a flatter roof. There's the design would be more of a contemporary design on the roof line. You don't really have, an area to walk in or anything like that. There's no attic. It's just it's pretty much a flat roof. That takes 3 feet off the height of the building right there. So the height of the building has been reduced by a minimum of 3 feet. And again, it's a fairly flat roof. But I asked the architect to do, whatever he could to reduce the impact, visual impact from the street relative to the height of the house. Those are the major changes. One other point that I made on the retaining wall design, we added an optional post and rail fence on the wall. And the reason I say optional, because I thought if we left it up to the building inspector to follow what the code required. My understanding is that where the wall does not abut a walkway or a driveway, it's just basically a wall passing through the yard. It may not require a full height fence. But that's, again, I would leave that up to the interpretation, or I would like to leave that up to the interpretation of the building inspector as to what is required, from the height of the wall. We also found that by landscaping on the front of the walls, we were going to be adding mulch and loam. And we've got 3.5 feet on the north side between the wall and the property line. And we could easily add 1 foot of loam along the entire length of the wall. And that would knock off the wall from, say, 2 feet to 1 foot. And I believe at the highest point, it was 5 feet. The visible wall would be 4 feet. So through landscaping and grading and with plants, we have significantly reduced the visual impact of the wall from the north and the south. Basically, that pretty much covers most of the information that was requested. So with that, I will give it back to the chair and answer any questions that you have.
Thanks, Bob. There any questions from the board? Rich?
No.
Chris, do you have any questions?
I have no questions. Thank you for providing this information. I appreciate it.
You're welcome.
All right. Jim?
Yeah, I have a few questions. In looking at the newly submitted things, the newly submitted landscaping plan,
Right.
it appears as though the height of the wall remains unchanged from its prior configuration.
No, that's not correct. The wall on the northern side, if you look at the, what would be the highest point, one block, which is a foot, 3 inches, 16 inches, was one entire block was taken off the top of the wall, so that the whole height of the wall in that area was reduced. This is near the house. This is near the house.
Okay, near the house, but the overall height of the wall still is greater than 5 feet on the north.
Right. If you go to the
Greater than 4 feet on the south wall.
right, well, it's not really greater than, yeah, it's slight. I would say it's like 4 feet 3 inches on the south wall. The northern wall, at the highest point of the northern wall, correct. The wall, height of the wall at that point has not changed.
Okay.
What we did was to take a look at all the topography for the septics, the breakout slopes, the slopes required for the building foundation, all that. We looked at all those and lowered the wall. In any place where we found we could lower it, we did.
So where you ended up effectively lowering it is in the immediate proximity of the newly proposed house and not down in the...
Right, we basically knocked off a full row of blocks off the top of the wall there.
At the top of the house for like a 6-foot section. You knocked a row of blocks off for like 6 feet, 5 feet, 8 feet?
Well, the sections are 4 feet long, and we knocked off about 5 of them. So there's about 20 feet length.
So the 20 feet up immediately closest to the house,
Closer to the
not
house.
down. So the wall remains the same down as it progresses towards the lake.
Yes, yes.
What are the wall setbacks from the property lines?
The wall setbacks on the northern side, at lot 21, the wall setback is 3.5 feet. And the wall setback on the southern side, number 23, is a little over a foot. It's like 14 inches.
And you're going to be able to fit the landscaping and the ivy and all that within the setbacks?
Yeah. Well, you have 3.5 feet on the northern side. That's plenty. The ivy takes up approximately 6 inches, where you plant the ivy right at the base of the wall, and then it grows up the wall. The ivy.
I had a house with ivy, the brick house with ivy, and the ivy, it's invasive as bittersweet. It'll send runners out into the adjacent yard. I don't know how you can manage ivy on a wall with a 1-foot setback, but that's another issue that I had a conversation with our zoning enforcement officer and building inspector as it relates to the walls, and any wall, any retaining wall greater than 4 feet is considered a structure. And structures are subject to setback. So in addition to all of the other criteria that you've asked us to consider as it relates to the house, you're now asking for you're also asking for setback relief for the retaining walls.
Well, if they're calling it a structure, I guess we would have to ask for setback relief, yes.
Okay, that's it. So the septic design, you didn't do anything as it relates to changing elevations or looking at ways to modify the septic design to adjust the height of the walls as it relates to the areas that are adjacent to the water. So the impact to the walls, where the neighbors on either side would most feel it, remain unchanged.
Well, the septic system follows Title V, and it's the minimum requirement. In other words, we didn't add 1 inch of height to the septic system, you know, where we didn't need to. It's strictly following minimum requirements for height. I would add that the Presby system allows you to reduce the height significantly by the nature of its design. You don't have a level field. You can follow the slope. You have a reduction to groundwater. These are all provided, what we call offset relief was provided by the DEP and the Board of Health. So it was, what you're looking at now is the minimum requirements to meet Title V.
Okay. I also, actually, I do have one more comment. One of the things that you submitted was the application for a tight tank. And there was a highlighted area, and I don't know if it's material or not, but it says tight tanks are only used to eliminate a failed on-site septic system when there is no other feasible alternative to upgrade the system in accordance with Title V and a sewer connection is not
I provided that information because there was a question at the last hearing as to.
My point is that I don't know that that necessarily applies here because there is no existing septic system that's failed.
Well, actually, you're wrong. There is a septic system that is in failure. It was proven through the Board of Health that there had been a privy. A privy is considered a septic system. And where you had a previous privy.
Well, I'm just saying that I don't know that that necessarily applies in this situation because I don't see a failed Title V compliance system or a failed system that there is no underground septic system. There's a hole in the ground.
The way the law reads.
Okay, no, that's fine. That's okay. I'm done. That's all I had.
Dan, do you have any questions?
Yeah, I don't recall seeing a deck being part of the plans in any previous iteration. Is there a new deck in these plans now?
The architect added a deck to the plans. And, you know, when I asked him about it, he said, well, every house has a deck. That's, you know, but I had not shown a deck because of the square footage requirement, you know, where we had 2 floors coming in the building. On my site plan, I did not show a deck. And the architect had added a deck. Again, basically what I'd like to do, if I'm following the proper procedure, would be to leave that up to the zoning officer relative to a deck. The site plan that I originally had did not show a deck. And again, it was because the interpretation of the building area, it included the deck. So my numbers weren't working if I had a deck on there. So I didn't show it on the site plan. But, you know, if the plan you just showed wasn't the site plan I'm not sure where I saw that.
Yeah, I'm just looking back at what we've got here.
Did I just miss it in the past? What was that old one that had it on there?
Yeah, that was a preliminary plan from a while ago.
I was going to say, okay.
It's really, I leave it up to the board, really, how you approach the deck. I was more concerned with the square footage of the building and possibly, like a patio type of situation. But if the deck, I'd like to leave it up to the building inspector, zoning officer, as to how the deck would go, if that's okay with you.
I mean, we have to vote, right, on what's submitted. So you're submitting it with a deck now.
Right.
Is that okay?
I consider that a pretty substantial change.
I as well. Dan, any other questions?
Nope.
Bob, I have a question for you.
Sure.
I think on the earlier proposal, we were talking about a full basement with a bulkhead for access. Now, all of a sudden, we've got a walkout. And when I look at your sill elevations and your finished floor elevations, it looks like everything's come up 3 feet. And that's pretty much the opposite way we were trying to go with the house.
Well, that's the
Lower-
ground elevation. The ground is up 3 feet and you have windows. There's no walkout door. I mean, there's no, typical walkout slider doors, that type of thing. This is just a doorway where we graded by lowering the wall 1 block, a height of 1 block. We graded that area. While we lowered the wall, we graded it, and we found that we wouldn't need a bulkhead if we just had grading going down to that doorway. It works either way. If believe it or not, if I put in a bulkhead there, which would give me the same height as a door, then I'd have to raise the wall up another block of height of blocks, because now I'm grading where, the bulkhead now requires me to fill on either side of the bulkhead. This way, I take the bulkhead out and I use landscaping. It's a grass slope, to achieve the same thing without steps. But what it did do, it allowed me to lower the wall a full block's height in that area.
But the elevations, Bob, on the plan you provided, you're calling out for sill elevation now of 583. And on the last plan, on this latest plan also, it calls out for the sill elevation of 580 and the slab elevation of 572.5. So now your sill elevation's at 583, and quick math with a 710 ceiling height in the basement, your basement's at 575.16, give or take. So everything's gone up 3 feet.
Where are you seeing the change sill elevation? It's
Right
not-
there on that drawing, right, that's on the screen. Sill elevation is 583.
Can you show me the landscape plan, the topo plan? Because I didn't catch that. That's the sill, 580. That's the sill. I believe that's an error on the architectural plan. That's an error, because the sill is set. If you look at all the grading on the site, the sill is set at 580. It's absolutely not supposed to be 583. I missed that on the architectural plan. In fact, I have a copy of the plans here, but what you're seeing on the site plan, that sill elevation of 580, that's the elevation that I'm asking for. That should not be changed.
Okay.
It may be a way that the architect is, interpreting it or something, but if you look at the slab elevation, you look at the sill elevation, the sill has not changed.
Okay. Do we have any other questions or comments from the board? All right, at this time, is there anyone who would like to comment on this petition? Chris, we have anyone call in on the phone or anything like that?
No one's in the chat. I think Christine Nuoloyoko unmuted herself. So
Close.
oh, sorry.
I don't know. It's just like it sounds. Loico.
Okay. Thank you.
So just, the other thing is on that other drawing, the ceiling heights in the basement are now 7 feet 10 inches. Last time I thought we were talking about 4 feet. So I'm confused about
No,
that.
we had gone back to a full basement on the last drawing. He was dropping the floor into the ground, not raising it up. He was going deeper so he could have a full basement.
Somehow I missed that. Okay.
The reason for that was so that
So they can make a room.
all the people, all the tradesmen working in the building, they're going to do the electric, the plumbing, the heating, and all that. They're not going to want to work in a 5 foot. They're not going to want to work in a 5 foot area.
And how long are they going to be there doing work? They're going to be there for the building of it, and then you make it sound like people are going to be in there like all the time doing work. That's I don't know, whatever. So
The floor was lowered, but the building was not raised. The floor was lowered because we found that the groundwater and the soil material, we could lower the floor. The door level was lowered. And that, again, it's not meant to be a living area. And you could put that in, your conditions of approval. It is absolutely not meant to be a living area.
right, but that doesn't mean but whatever. So the other thing is, I don't know, just one thing I keep hearing is that, like, so now you got 2 different plans with different elevations. And if you guys are approving something, that's concerning to me in terms of it's all up to interpretation. So what is it exactly you're approving? The architectural design of the house, I mean, that's what somebody's going to be building from. They're not going to be building from a landscape design. So
Actually, you
I
won't.
don't know, just something I'm allowed. So that's my concern. My concern is with the fence. He also said, well, he kept, instead of saying, all right, you guys, here's my plan. This is it. Let's approve it. It's like, well, I got this, and then maybe we'll put a 4-foot fence on top of the 5-foot wall. But we'll let the building inspector or somebody decide that, and maybe I'll have a deck or maybe I won't. And we'll let the zoning guy decide that. Well, so what is it you guys are being asked to approve? That's a little concerning just listening to it. I'm really happy the roof is lower. For me, that's a nice perspective, but I don't know, and just, imagine standing, again, that 5 feet plus 4 feet, stand on somebody's shoulders and you got that running all the way down the length of your property that you've owned for how many generations and years. I don't know. That's it. I'm done.
Christine.
You know how we all feel.
Christine.
Yeah.
When we do vote on it, if we approve it or not, we will be pretty thorough in exactly what gets approved and what doesn't. I know that it sounds a little sketchy as he's proposed it right now, but anytime we approve anything, we have to reference plans and that type of thing. So it will be much clearer when and if it gets approved.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you.
If I could add a few more notes
I
to
can't
that.
get me.
And exactly what gets approved and what doesn't.
I don't know how to get on.
Yeah, he's having notes.
You're on, Ronnie.
I'm on. I'm sorry, Chris, what?
Can hear you.
Hello?
Hello, we can hear you. Who's this?
Oh, okay, my name is Ronnie Angstrand. I won't take much of your time. It's Alan and Ronnie Angstrand. My husband is alongside. with Patricia Grandy, who has given me permission to use her name, we want to be on record as protesting to this whole development of the property for all the reasons that you're presenting yourself. Our biggest concerns are those walls and the water that does flow through here. We do not know, that wall is not going to maintain that water that flows, and we know that for a fact. And what the well, our wells are so close, is that going to affect the water from our well to his well? These are just questions still. And about all the trees, does he have to cut down all those trees? That in itself is, I mean, if you ever read the article that they just posted in the Uxbridge News about all the trees and how good they are and what they do for us, they give us oxygen, they help when we're in drought. There's so many avenues, but our main concern is we want to just protest this whole development. And I will let you go and thank the board for taking the time.
Thank you also, Al.
Thank you. Bob, did you have a couple things you wanted to add?
Well, yeah, one note was just brought up, the butters keep talking about flowing water on the site. I've been visiting this site for the last 3 years with the Board of Health agent, Conservation Commission agent, the owners, potential contractors, the tree people, and not once have we seen either evidence of water flow in this property or water flow. It's just, I don't know where they're coming up with this. It's like the eagles, they had the Division of Fish and Wildlife down there because there was supposedly eagles nesting in the trees. Someone is providing these people with information to use that's just not true. Okay, that's what I'll say about that. But as far as what I'm asking you to approve, the plans that were approved by the Board of Health and the Conservation Commission, they have the grading, the sill elevations, the walls have been revised at the request of the board. And we've done that. But as far as elevations of the sill and things like that, those are on the plans that I've submitted you. There should be no, ambiguous.
As far as what I'm asking you to approve,
But Bob, you're redirecting the water. I don't think you can hear me.
What water?
The water that's going to come down in the spring, it's going to be all redirected now with all the removal of these trees. Can you have to?
I made a point of going to the site this spring to find the water.
But did you look in the cellar underneath over there?
That's groundwater in the cellar. I agree with you. That's cut into the side.
Yeah, it's a mud puddle there, and it's breeding insects and unhealthy things in there.
Yeah, it's a dump. The house is a dump.
Yeah, we know
Yeah,
that.
we know that. We know.
Ronnie,
that.
can you turn down your television just a little bit? We're getting some
Oh,
feedback.
I'm sorry. Yep.
That's okay.
Yep, absolutely. No, I understand that, but we know what it's like in the spring with all that water, and your well's going to be very close to our well, so that's a concern. That's a concern. We have no problem with our water now, none at all. We've been here for 20 years, and we've never had an issue with our water. But I'm just wondering now, with your well being there and our well being there, what's going to happen with the water flow too? That's just our concerns.
Okay.
I want the board to consider.
I can appreciate your concern, but what you have to realize is that these wells are drilled 300, 400, 500 feet into the ground, and you could have them 5 feet apart. They don't affect each other. This is all monitored by the Board of Health and the DEP.
Doesn't fall under our jurisdiction.
No, but the thing is, we can't put a well that's going to impact a neighbor. We can't do it.
I know, that's what they say. That's what they say, Bob, but you have to understand how skeptical we are about that. And the trees, all the trees. The trees are very important too. Can you trim some of the trees? Do they all have to come down over there?
The problem with the trees is the insurance company, they won't insure your house if they see trees like that right over your house. I personally, I would like to see the 2 oak trees along your property. I'd like to see them stay. I personally would like to see that. the pine trees are unstable. I've had two arborists down there, and they both said the same thing. They reach a certain height, and then they just snap. And when they come down, they destroy
Well,
the
those
house.
are mighty, yeah, they're mighty big pine trees for sure. I don't even know how you're even gonna get those down.
Well,
As far as the oak trees, yeah, I know, but it's all the trees in general. They produce oxygen. When it's drought, they give you water. There's so many issues with the trees, Bob. That's a real big concern too. But I think those walls really concern us a lot.
the Conservation Commission required that we provide a landscape plan with pine trees, oak trees, to replace the trees that we're removing, and actually more. But,
Well, you're gonna put ivy and roses, and that's gonna replace the trees, Bob?
no.
Oh, what are you gonna put else? Are you gonna put in there?
The landscape plan has oak trees, pine trees. There's like 25 trees going to be planted on the site, all over the place.
Oh, I don't know. I didn't know. I don't think I realized that. I
Yeah,
don't see that anywhere in any plan, so,
That's in the conservation landscape plan.
okay, I didn't see the conservation.
No, they
plan.
required
All
it.
right. I
The
know.
conservation required us to replace the trees with a minimal amount, and we doubled the amount just because it.
And Bob, too, that vine, that is a bad idea because we see it here. That grows into the lawns, the ivy.
I have it on my house, and I clip it along the ground. It's on a stone wall, and it goes up the wall. Every now and then you prune it. It's not that hard.
I don't want to do that. I've got all the vegetation here I want. But, okay, I don't want to keep this meeting going. I just wanted to voice that we do object to all this development.
Thank you. Is there anyone else who would like to comment on this petition? All right, any other comments from the board?
I've got a puppy.
Rich, you all set?
Yeah, I thought, I saw some photos of some walls around the lake, and, there are a lot of walls, retaining walls, septic walls, walls with fences above them. Somebody did a pretty good job taking some photographs to share with us. Did everybody see those, or was it just me?
Yeah, I actually was out on the lake and observed the walls as well. I mean, it's not an unusual occurrence on Singletary to see houses with those types of walls. I guess my only concern is the discrepancy in the elevations that Rick mentioned.
Mm-hmm.
The elevations on the site plans are the ones that we're using. These plans are the architect. I didn't see all the elevations on it, but I saw the house itself, and the floor level is based upon the grade of the sill, and the sill is set by the septic system plan. I can't go raising it or lowering it.
So for my special permit decision worksheet, I need to reference site plan and architectural plan. I don't know if we've ever encountered a situation where they don't match when it comes time to go to a vote.
Well, I'm looking at
just last month, Dan.
Yeah.
going through my plans right now. I want to see this sill.
If I could add something on fencing. We got a little clarification from John. And the fencing is really only required if there's a walk, path, or parking lot or driveway on the high side that's located closer than 2 feet. So in this case, I don't believe a fence would be required on top of that wall.
Man, I didn't know if the board wanted to discuss the deck at all.
Can we go back to the pictures for a second?
Which one you want to see?
course.
I just want to go through them, and are all of these pictures of properties in Sutton?
No, there's some Millbury. There are Millbury pictures here. I can.
Some of both, right?
Yeah.
And the blue house, about 5 of the pictures are of the same house, right? That big blue house that's got all the walls and retaining walls and all that stuff on it.
Picket fence. Well, walls. Is that what you're talking about?
So there's a big blue 2-story house that's shown with a boat in front of it in one picture, a fence on a wall in another. That's all one house.
I think that's in Millbury.
That's in Millbury. Okay. And these pictures don't show the retaining walls proximity to property lines or abutting houses either. You can't really see how they impact what's around them. So we've got a bunch of pictures of houses in Millbury with retaining walls. And no.
Well, I mean, yeah, yes, there are some houses in Millbury, but some of them are in Sutton. To be fair, I mean, they're not all in Millbury.
But which ones are the Sutton ones?
Yeah, that's a good question. It's not marked on there. But I mean, I can't guide you through them because we don't have them to.
I went on GIS and Google Earth and kind of looked around, and it's kind of tough to get the perspective of height from from above. I saw a lot of bulkheading, right? Retaining walls that are used to retain soil around the perimeter of the. And I saw a fair amount of retaining walls that are used to kind of rack dirt around the proximity of houses and foundations. But I didn't really see anything that was on property lines that ran lengths of property lines that created this kind of change in elevation. I didn't see, and like I said, using the GIS and Google Earth, it's kind of tough to get a perspective of height, but I didn't see a similar condition as it existed on the lake. In terms of proximity to property lines and height of wall and length of wall and running along property lines and that kind of stuff.
I mean, there's no question this will affect the neighbors, and it'll certainly, they'll certainly see it. I guess is it unusual for the lake? I guess my answer is no.
I would also question how many of those walls actually have a building permit. I see walls all around that lake, and I guarantee you, the majority of them were just built without permits. My client is trying to do everything above board here. Be open to all the process. And, you should just be aware that I think if you go down the building department, you won't find too many applications for retaining walls down there.
All right, any other questions from the board?
I guess what do we do about the deck?
That is a good question.
Because I will say it's a little annoying to have, plans without a deck and now plans with a deck. I mean, it's not cool.
Yeah,
Well, to be honest with you, I'm a little annoyed that he changed the sill elevation on the house because it wasn't necessary. So what I would say at this time is that, if you're comfortable with it, I will resubmit a set of architectural plans and they will show the sill at 580 because that's what the whole site has been designed around. I don't know where the 583 came from, but it didn't come from my plans. As far as the deck being added to it, it was never on any of my plans. So if you have a problem with that, I'll take it off. What I'd like to do, as part of your vote, or whether you approve or disapprove, is to have a condition that the architectural plans be submitted with the sill being shown as what's on all the plans that I originally did. And that's elevation 580.
That will definitely be a requirement.
So that's a good suggestion, but I think we historically approve what's before us and not conditioned on future plans.
Yeah, I agree. I think we'd have to probably get in front of us what we
Yeah.
plan to approve.
I think we should just vote on it. I'm tired of, we've been kind of going around beating the same dead horse over and over again. I think that it's time to close.
You know, I agree that you could vote, but I've been before many boards in many different towns, and I have had numerous decisions with conditions. You can condition the approval that, for instance, the sill be no higher than 580. That can be, it doesn't matter what the architectural plan shows.
Oh,
The
yeah.
architectural plan is gives you a view of what the side of the house will look like. But the sill elevation is based upon the Board of Health plan. That's the primary plan. The secondary plan is conservation, the landscape plan, things like that. But
Well, what happens when if we do that and the sill is higher? Like, what is the recourse? I mean, the horse is out of the game at that point.
They
no,
tear it down.
here's the way.
They
Here's
tear
the
it
way.
down.
The building inspector requires a certified foundation plan. And that plan has to show that we meet the setback requirements from the property lines. The building has to be the size it is on the plan, and the sill has to be the elevation that's on the plan. That's required before we can do any building on the property. Well, we first drill the well, get a water quality, cert on the well. Then we get a certification on the location of the foundation. You can't build a house until the foundation is certified. Now that certification shows the setbacks of the house, the size of the foundation, and in this case here, it would also show the sill elevation. If it's on the plan, that's what it has to be.
It's part of our requirement anyways, Chris, on the approval. It's a certified plot plan. And it's got to be certified that it is what it is, or they'll be taking it down.
Yeah, we believe me, I've seen them come down. I just did one in Oxford. They had to move. They had to take the house out. They've got to follow. We have a registered surveyor locate the house and the sill and all that before we proceed any further with construction.
So if we were to I'd just feel better if we had a better set of plans. I know we've been going round and round, but what does the board feel as far as moving forward? Do we try to close this, vote on it, condition it to some revised plans? Do we call out the sill elevation? And what do we do about the deck? Bob, do you want to leave the deck on? Do we want to take it off? I mean, it seems to be an oversight that there wasn't a deck there from the very beginning, but.
I was not asked to show a deck, and I didn't. Apparently the architect, he may have received some direction in that, but I was not aware of that. But, my concern here is that any of the requirements relative to a deck or fencing and things like that, I would be willing to follow the requirements of this board and the zoning officer, the building inspector. See what he says if it's allowed. He knows more about it than I do.
Well, if it's going to be allowed, we should include it in our decision if we're going to make it.
Well, between you and me, I'm sure the owner would love to have the deck added there. You obviously talked that over with the architect. My concern initially was the foundation, the grading of the property and all that. I really didn't get too concerned about a deck. But the architect...
I think I would say you'd probably, it would be better to have an accurate set of plans to vote on rather than having us condition the heck out of the thing. I mean, I'll lay it out. I mean, in general, I'm in favor of this type of thing from what's there now, but I really am annoyed about the plans. I think that was quite an oversight.
Well, the sill elevation is it's going to be what's on the plan, and that has to-
Sure. But I mean, it's the deck. It's like we've been kind of down the road a bunch of times now.
Well, how do you feel about the deck? I mean, I'll take the deck off if you tell me you don't want it, and but I just need some direction.
I guess it's not a big deal other than it just popped on tonight. So, I mean, seems silly to me not to have a deck on it, but
I think that's what the architect was probably getting at. I mean,
I mean,
go up and
it
down the
doesn't
street, everybody has a deck.
you're asking for a special permit, so I mean, what does everybody else think?
Mr. Chairman, I'd like to make a motion to close the public hearing.
You got a second on that?
I'll second.
All those in favor? Rich?
Aye.
Dan?
Aye.
Jim?
Aye.
Aye.
And I'm an aye also. The ayes have it. We'll close the hearing. We'll do a work session in a little bit. And we'll let you know. If you'd like to stay on, you're more than welcome.
Yeah, well, feel free to, oh, so you're going to have the work session now?
Oh, at
Or-
the end of the hearing.
Yeah,
We're gonna
okay.
do the other, we'll get another hearing first, and then we'll do a work session.
Okay. Well, if you had any questions, you could call me on my cell and I'd jump back in.
Okay. Well, we've closed the hearing now, so we won't be able to take any new information at this
Oh,
point.
okay. Well, I agree. Okay. Well, I thank you very much for your time and your work, really.
All right, thanks, Bob. Appreciate your help as well.
Okay, take care.
All right, we're gonna move on to our next application. To all interested inhabitants of the town of Sutton, in accordance with the provisions of Mass General Law, Chapter 48, Section 11, the Zoning Board of Appeals will hold a public hearing at the Sutton Town Hall on July 2nd, 2020 at 7:05 PM on the petition of Mark Romano and Karen Carlson. The petitioners request a special permit, Section 7A2, as it pertains to Section 1C2D of the town zoning bylaws to permit the replacement of an existing garage with a 28 by 48 garage with living space above. The property that is the subject of this petition is located at 165 Boston Road, as shown on Assessor's Map number 10 as parcel number 62. The property is located in the R1 Residential Zoning District. A copy of the petition may be inspected during normal office hours in the town clerk's office located in the town hall. Any person interested or wishing to be heard on the special permit petition should appear at the time and place designated. Daniel Petrelli, Board of Appeals Clerk. All right, good evening.
Hi there.
If you could state your name for the record and just give us a little rundown on your petition this evening.
Sure, no problem. Good afternoon, everybody. I'm Mark Romano. This is my wife, Karen. We've been residents of Sutton, between the two of us, for over 50 years. We own a home right now, which is very small at less than 700 square feet of actual living space. And we're looking to remove the existing garage and breezeway and replace those with a larger garage structure with living space above. We've been working on this plan for about a year with many revisions to get down to the smallest footprint possible while still accommodating our needs. We were able to shrink our plan down to fit within all setbacks, including the maximum building coverage on the lot. We were even able to remove the non-conforming garage location which fell within the front setback, and move the new construction proposed to a conforming spot. Because of all this work, we are able to only request one form of relief. With the very small size of the current house, nearly any increase would put it over the 30% allowed in the bylaws. We're seeking a 50% increase of the original footprint for our proposed alteration as shown in the application. Thank you.
You're currently on a private septic now. You're gonna be going on to a town sewer?
That's right. Prior to construction this summer, we will be hooking up to the town on Boston Road, and we have those plans as part of the application as well.
All right. Do you have any questions from the board?
Yes, please. Mr. Romano, do you know what the overall footprint is of the proposed building compared to your site, what their percentage is?
Well, I'm asking for, it's 50% of the original. I'm not sure I understand the number you're looking for.
So what percentage of the lot is the footprint of your proposed completed building?
The entire house, when complete, will be 9%.
Okay. That was the answer.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Rich, those on the G&H site plan, they're at the top of the plan. I just found them.
Okay.
Any other questions from any board members?
I have another question.
Hi, Rich.
Sure.
Mr. Romano, what is the purpose for having 4 bay doors on the first floor? What is your business?
Well, it's completely residential, not commercial at all.
Car
Our
collector?
Yes.
Okay.
Our pastime is old cars.
Very nice.
We have a few. We'd like to keep them protected rather than parked out on the lawn.
Right.
And the design and the size of the new structure incorporates this need with a more prominent need for additional living space.
Okay. Thank you.
I have one question. The site plan doesn't show a driveway from the 4 garage bays. How is that going to be managed?
It doesn't show it. The contractor proposed a paved drive around to the side, sort of branching off the existing driveway.
Is that what that little looks like a elbow here is?
Definitely. So the existing driveway is in the front, obviously labeled driveway.
Yep.
And then it's gonna go to the left side of the garage. The doors are on the side.
Oh, I see.
Okay.
So the driveway would fall into the side setback then if it was on the plan?
The driveway would, well, the building itself would be 25 feet from the property line. So the driveway would be within that.
The driveway would be within the 25 feet. So the driveway would probably be 8 or 10 feet from the property line.
That's right.
Any other questions?
So just so I understand, your house now will still be what did you say, 9% of the lot is what it'll take up with your expansion?
With the completed project, it'll be 9%. Correct.
Dan, some questions?
It just seems bigger than 50%. What am I missing here? Like when I see this, all the images of it, it looks like it really dwarfs the original house.
I think you might be misled because the original structure is coming down. That's there, which is a 15 by 20 or so garage. And that's about a third of the new space.
Right now, Dan,
Yes.
they're at 5.3%.
Yeah, I see that on the top, and this brings up to 9%, right?
Yep. So it is almost doubling it.
Right. Okay. I mean, I would guess this is bigger than even the existing house, but maybe because I'm counting the inside of the actual parking area.
Anything else, Dan?
That's it for me.
Chris, you good?
I'm good. I mean, it'd be nice to have the driveway on the plans, I guess, is what I would say. But-
Yeah, I also have an issue with the driveway not being on the plan, intentionally or otherwise. I think it was a little bit misleading because the driveway would encroach the side setback.
Jim?
I'm good.
Okay.
I mean, I would like to see the driveway obviously should be reflected on the plan, but that's,
Yep. All right, is there anyone on this evening who would like to speak for or against this petition?
Hi, I'm Glenn Coulter. I'm here with my wife Dale. We live at 170 Boston Road, which is kind of diagonally across the street from 165 Boston Road. We also own 174 Boston Road, which is within the abutters locations. And I also own 6 Bullard Lane, which is the closest abutter to 165 Boston Road. 6 Bullard Lane is a house that my parents built in 1953. It's where I grew up in town. So I've lived in Sutton since 1953. Lived there until we got married in 1978, or in 1973 rather. Moved out of town for 5 years, but moved back in 1978 here at 170 Boston Road. So my wife has been almost as long a resident as I have in Sutton, living on Leland Hill Road since I think it was 1957 or 58 that you moved in. We're both products of the Sutton school system. We've both worked for, the town in various aspects. My wife has been a town nurse for a short period of time. I've served on the school building committee, the town bylaw committee, and other functions within town. So we have a pretty solid stake in Sutton. having lived here so long, and it's been a good solid relationship for us in town. The concern that I have, aside from what I think are errors in the application, but we get to that in a minute. The timing of this, I guess I don't quite understand, because, you know, I was fairly friendly with the previous owners of the Ozellas, and they would help my parents when they were alive at 6 Bullard Lane, and so we got to interact quite often. And Anthony Ozella, we call him Rocky, was his nickname. Rocky was always kind of around and everything, and always available for a chat now and then. And it wasn't probably more than 2 months ago that he mentioned to me that he had run into Mark Romano at the store 32 and got to talking about things. One thing led to another, and suddenly they're talking about selling the house at 165 Boston Road. So if there were conversations before that, I guess I'm a little surprised that Rocky didn't mention anything about it. I think this project's come together, from what I can see and so forth, in fairly quick time. Interestingly, my wife and I got a letter from Mark and Karen, dated June 1st of this year, and basically saying, you know, you may have heard that the Ozellas are selling and we're going to be moving into town and so on. And we have, you know, we're interested in, you know, expanding the property at 165 Boston Road. We have antique cars that, you know, we have an interest in and so forth. And our intentions, he goes on to say, our intentions are not to open a commercial business, not to invite people over for repair work, never to sit in the driveway and rev engines, and we do not waste tires by doing burnouts. We're quiet, friendly people. To that, I sent a letter to Mark and Karen, June 9th, saying, you know, thanks for your introduction. Explained a little bit of our background in town, and we had not seen any plans at that point. I said, you have indicated your plans are not compliant with current bylaws. While your intentions may be good for the use of the property, we'll be anxious to see the details of your plans. With that, we received a registered letter from the town stating that this activity was occurring. And to follow that, I called Len Dowland to see if we could get a copy of the proposal, which she went on to send me. And so now I've finally seen a copy of the plans and have had a chance to look through it. Now I've done, you know, my background's engineering, so this isn't terribly foreign to me. But I think some of the numbers are a little off, but I would ask the board to clarify one part of the bylaw relative to this non-conforming situation. And it says specifically on part 2D, any non-conforming structure may be extended by right up to 30% of the square footage of its footprint, as long as no non-conformities are created or increased. Any increase beyond 30% or creation or / increase of a non-conformity shall only be allowed pursuant to special permit. And that's why we're here. So the question I have that isn't crystal clear in my mind is the square footage of its footprint. Now, if I look at this addition as its footprint only, and not the fact that it's 2 stories with additional, which doubles its living space. We have an existing house that they bought on July 1st or June 30th, whatever date it was, of a porch, house, breezeway, and a garage, totaling 1,560 square feet. If you look at the allowable expansion of 30%, that would allow these folks to increase the size of their buildings to 2,028 square feet. Now, that's living space, you know, but in this particular case, at this point in time, it's also footprint size because there's no second floors anywhere. So if we look at the Romano proposal, we keep the porch, we keep the house, the foyer changes a little bit, and the new garage brings the total footprint to 2,446 square feet. And I think, Dan, that you perhaps, you know, just felt in your gut that it was a lot larger than, you know, we've been talking about. If I look at the expansion of their project on the basis of total square feet of available space, it comes to 3,598 square feet. That's a very significant increase in living space and, you know, including garage and so forth. So I'm not sure what the bylaw really is trying to get to. Is it really trying to stick with the footprint or the living space? And the reason I question that is because now if you put a second story on the footprint, it raises the height of the building. And now the building, if we look at their drawings, is 25 feet high. It doesn't say that, but if you put a scale on there and actually measure it out, because these are drawings, it's 25 feet. So now here I am at 6 Bullard Lane, looking out my Florida room glass doors to enjoy the neighborhood, to see a wall of 4 garage door bays and 4 windows on the second floor and a roof line that's 25 feet tall. It almost, you know, and the boundary lines are so fairly close there. You know, you feel like you're in a jail cell or something, or you feel like you're living in the city of Worcester on a 3-decker. I mean, it's just not in keeping with the neighborhood. So that's that issue that I have. So if we're looking at the increase in size on the basis of the footprint, that's 57%. If we look at the increase on the basis of total floor space, that's 130% increase over the current. That's huge. If we stay on this, on page 2 of the proposal, they say the evidence to support grant of special permit on the first item here, it says all for residential use. And you know, it is residentially zoned and it should be residential use only. I guess I struggle a little bit with the notion that 4 bays on the side of the garage and one bay on the front of the garage for 5 bays is just residential. I mean, if you like antique cars and all you're gonna do is park them and work them and so forth, why do you need so many doors? I just don't understand it. But that's just me asking the question. Item 2, the well is tied into the sewer. That's obviously somebody made a mistake in saying something there. I don't see how the well is tied into the sewer. I didn't see any, drawings or anything identifying that this property is going to be tied into town water. I saw evidence that the Ozellas had a plan drawn up by Harris to tie into the sewer, but they never took action on it because they sold the property. So I haven't seen any evidence that Mark and Karen have actually any plans other than what was previously looked at by the Ozellas. Item 3 says this alteration will increase the beautification of the street and corner. I don't know how that's possible. Hide excess vehicles into secure storage and boost the home values in the neighborhood. Well, from what I've seen of the architectural drawings, it kind of looks like a big commercial garage, to tell you the truth. How in the world does that enhance the value of my property at 6 Bullet Lane, let alone my property at 170 Boston Road or my property at 174 Boston Road? I don't get it. And they also say that and be of similar size to the majority of the abutters. Well, I got to tell you, that is way off the mark, because I looked up the sizes of all properties of abutters, and as it turns out, the average size of the homes in this area were 1,380 square feet in size. The proposal that Mark and Karen have is 3,104 square feet. That's 2.5 times larger than the average abutter in the neighborhood. So this property is going to dwarf anything else around here by a lot. So I don't think it's in keeping at all. Actually, a note I made to myself here is, where is the driveway to access the 4-bay garage? Because all I could imagine was this driveway coming up next to my property line. Why in the world do I want to see a driveway in my property line? Let alone that it's more than a driveway, it's got to be a turnaround. Because how do you make a right angle turn into a garage door, off a 8-foot wide driveway that's tucked in close to the building or something? So, I don't know that a lot of thought was put into this. I think right now, in my mind, it's sloppy. I don't mind somebody buying property, wanting to improve it and do it the right way and in keeping with the area that they're going into. But to put this kind of a project together, I think is just totally off base and lacks any concern for the neighborhood itself and the residents. So that's kind of where we are at this point.
All right, thank you. All right.
Would you like
I
to
can
hear?
address one of your concerns on the sewer. I think we have a drawing here.
Did he just freeze?
He freezed and he left. He froze and he left, I mean.
He froze. Is there a date on the SOAR plan drawing? I don't see like a, latest updated date.
On the architectural or the engineer's drawing?
I think it's the engineer's drawing for the sewer plan.
Oh, sewer plan. Yeah, March 4th of this year.
Okay.
If I want to
Here we go.
wait for our chairman to return. My question for you, when calculating the total lot area, the total lot coverage prior to this project, the existing one, I see there's a few different zones on the GIS here. So we've got basement unfinished, basement first floor, and then it also has patio, garage, and the breezeway, but it's called porch enclosed finished. Is that including all of those? Is this like total lot coverage, including the patio for the original number?
I can answer all of Mr. Coulter's questions if you want me to. I kind of like to wait for the chairman to come through, but
Sure.
Any idea if he's going to make it?
Let's give him a little while.
Yeah, he just texted me. He's having trouble getting back in. I don't know if he's got a service issue at his location, but he's trying to rejoin the meeting.
I don't see him in the waiting room, but if I do, I'll let him in.
Well, you want me to continue? I don't mind.
I think we should wait a minute, don't you think?
Okay.
Has anyone been in touch with Rick or?
Chris was.
Oh,
Oh, I
okay.
thought Rich
Rich was.
Yeah, Rich was.
Okay.
At this point, you may want to continue and let him join in.
Continue the hearing, you mean?
Yeah, I would just let the app,
Here he is. Here, I see him. I let him in.
Hi.
He's joining.
I just did, Chris.
Whew.
I'm back. Did I miss anything?
No, we waited.
Sorry about that. I'm having a thunderstorm, so. All right, where were we?
Well, you were going to talk about sewer, but I can cover that in answers to all of Mr. Coulter's questions.
Okay, if you could come through me with the questions so we don't go back and forth between you guys, just go through me, all right? So if you would like to address his concerns, go ahead.
Well, number one was the rush to develop this plan. And I actually met Mr. Rosella last August, Rocky, as we all know him. And we've been talking about this plan with him and Kathy all winter long. When we made them an offer on their house early in the winter, I think February. When we secured they agreed to our offer and we set a closing date, we began drawings for what you have in front of you as the end result. I did, in fact, send Glenn a letter, and it was just a introductory. Here we are, and we have an idea, and you were going to see a copy of it soon. Didn't want you to be surprised. And the final number one is not commercial. It's not commercial space. Don't do anything commercial with cars. I just happen to own 5. And the bay on the end facing Bullard Lane is actually, it's a convenience store, because if you've ever had a car break down, it's a lot easier to push it straight into a garage door than around a corner into the side. And that's the purpose for that. As the chairman was addressing the sewer issue, the application says that the house has a well, and we are planning to tie into the town sewer this summer, if that's any clarity. I do have a question about the math, though. On the engineer's drawing from Gary and Hellman, the property is 26,257 square feet. If the building cover is currently 5.3%, that is 1,391 square feet. With my proposed drawing here, the building coverage will be 9%, and that is a total of 2,363 square feet of coverage. That was number 2. And it's number 3, beautification of the corner. Well, mint green isn't everybody's favorite flavor of the vinyl siding. So that's one step in the right direction. The whole house is going to be re-sided with all new windows at the same time as the project. And when it's complete, it will be similar size as a majority of abutters, as, let's see, 8 of the 10 abutters that are houses are actually over a single story. And this one being designed at 25 feet is still 10 feet less than the allowable 35. Those are the answers that I had.
All right, thank you. Do we have any other questions from the boards?
Just a question, maybe a clarification for our chairman too. driveways and setbacks, how do they interact? If you've got a driveway in a setback, is that non-conforming?
That's allowable.
It's allowable. Okay.
That's why the driveway was not actually on the plan. I did not believe that that was included in a setback.
I think it would be probably a good thing to have added on, just for clarity. Potentially, there could be a lot of driveway on that side. I think it would be good to represent it in the application.
What are your plans for trees? Are you adding more trees to the existing?
We are not, we're not removing any trees.
Okay.
So if a property border is requested or required, we can plant anything along the line.
I mean, it did sound like that was a kind of a felt concern.
Sure, sure.
I think a site visit certainly warranted in this application. How does the rest of the board feel on that?
I agree.
Yep.
I agree as well. It would be nice if they could stake out the building and locate the driveway and all that stuff so that when we get there, we can get a visual of how it's gonna, I don't know if the property line was surveyed and marked as part of the transfer of the property, but understanding and visualizing all the variables would be helpful.
Mark, are you familiar with your property lines, or are they marked out by chance?
They were marked when it was surveyed for the sewer. Yep.
Okay. And would it be possible for you just to roughly mark out the proposed addition?
I sure can.
Okay. Now the $1 million question, what's everyone's schedule as far as the site visit?
Next week, this whole next week is pretty clear.
Yep. Same here.
As of Friday the 10th, I'm going to be elsewhere, but anything before then I could do.
Yeah, I can do anytime next week. You know, early in the week, better for me. Rich?
Well, I'm on vacation. I'm not with Lynn, but I'm on vacation next week. So I do have to go back to Sutton, and I'm probably going to go on Wednesday. So if Wednesday is early enough in the week for you, Mr. Chairman, we might be able to make that work. I can always go by myself too.
Wednesday works for me, so.
Can we do like really early on Wednesday, like 7?
AM or PM?
Oh, well, I mean, if we could do it at night, that's even better. But I was thinking that in the AM side of the day.
Rich, what time are you going to be back in town?
I won't be there probably till 9 o'clock or so in the morning.
Well, then 7 p.m.
7 p.m. works for me.
Sure.
Rich?
Yeah, I'm good.
7's good for you, PM? Jim?
Yes.
Dan? Okay. Mark, Karen, does that work for you?
Yep, we'll be there.
Okay.
Make a motion to close the hearing?
We're going to continue it.
I mean, continue the hearing. Is what I meant to say.
Hey, could I be present? Is that possible?
That's fine with us if you'd like to attend. That's all right with Mark?
Sure. Like to be
All
good
right.
neighbors.
Okay. Well, thank you for the invitation.
All right, so we're going to schedule a site visit for next Wednesday. I don't know the date.
That'd be the 8th.
The 8th? Wednesday, the 8th at 7 p.m. on site. All right, I would entertain a motion then that we continue this hearing to next meeting, which is August 6th, I believe. Do you have anything else, Lynn, or are we 7 with this one? Or?
That's the only one.
Okay, so we're gonna continue the hearing to August 6th at 7 p.m.
I'll make that motion to continue the hearing.
Need a
I'll second
on
the
that?
motion. Sure.
All those in favor, Rich,
Aye.
Dan,
Aye.
Jim,
Aye.
Chris,
Aye.
and I also from me. All right, thank you, everyone, and we'll see you Wednesday night at 7.
All right.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
All right, I'd entertain a motion then, and we open a work session on Mr. Murphy's petition for stage 1 investors at 21.5 West Sutton Road.
I'll make a motion to open the work session for 21.5 West Sutton Road.
I'll second. We have a comment in the chat, Chris.
Oh, I didn't notice that. Hold on. Peter Meekan, 837. Can he still pose a question to the board?
In regards to, sorry, we've already continued at this point. Can he?
A general question, he says.
I guess he can try. Can't be about anything we're continuing, so.
Yeah, the hearings are closed, so I mean, unless he wants to know where I got my shirt.
Hi, sorry.
Hi.
I just had a quick question. My husband and I are applying for an agricultural permit to be submitted to next month's meeting, and I didn't think that a site plan would apply, so I just wanted to double check if we needed one.
Oh, is this the one for the, what was the address involved in this one?
447 Putnam Hill Road.
Yeah, I'm familiar with this one. I believe I spoke to you on the phone. They're gonna wanna know where the animals are gonna be kept. So they're gonna wanna see some sort of site plan. Unless you jump.
Sorry?
They're gonna wanna see some sort of site plan showing where the animals are gonna be housed. Unless they feel they want something different, that would be up to them. But that would be my recommendation.
Would I be able to like do a little diagram? I mean, we're not changing any of the buildings, you know, none of the setbacks are changing, you know, it doesn't really have to do with any of the existing buildings that, you know, the house on the property. So I just wanted to double check.
I don't see them joining in the conversation. So
Rick, you're on mute. I don't know if you know.
Yeah.
They're gonna want to see where these animals are housed, how far from property lines. If you're fencing them in somewhere, they're gonna want to see the corrals. If you gentlemen want to see something different, you know, let her know.
The more information, the better.
Okay, is there like a specific bylaw that outlines so I know what details to include?
I'm not sure exactly what your proposal is or what your application is going to be, but the more information that you can bring forth, the better, just to help us have a clear picture of what you're asking for.
Okay.
So, kind of leave it up to you, but worst case, we'll ask for more information and you'll have to get continued. That's
okay. Yeah, I mean, I've called around to a bunch of different places to get a site plan, but they're booked out a month because of coronavirus.
okay. Well, bring in what you can and we'll go from there.
Okay.
All right.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks.
All right, so we had a motion and a second to open the work session.
Aye.
Rich, Dan,
Aye.
Jim,
Aye.
Chris,
Aye.
I as well. All right, so we have had lots of discussion on this. And someone would like to make some sort of motion, we could get started that way, or if there's some more discussion, bring it on.
Yeah, I just, I mean, it's from the time this was submitted, the lots that are on either side of it are very small, and lakefront's a premium. And when you look at the relative size of the backyards of the abutters, at, usable space in the 50 by 50, 50 by 75 range, I think that the retaining walls as they're designed pose an undue nuisance to the neighbors. I'd be pretty upset if that happened next to me, and I don't necessarily agree that there aren't other options that can be explored. We've been talking about this for, I don't know, Lynn, 4 meetings, right? And every single time the height of the retaining walls has come up, and there's been little to no effort done to address what I consider to be, and the location on the lot lines and the proximity to the lot lines doesn't really, it further complicates the situation. I think it's I just think that there's too much going on this site, considering what it's pre-existing, what the current structure is, and what they're looking to accomplish on this particular lot. That's all.
Any more discussion? Anyone else have anything we want to add? Or, I mean, it comes down to whether or not it meets the criteria of the special permit. And obviously Jim's concerns fall into some of that.
Yeah, impact on neighborhood.
Yeah, I agree. Should we have a motion before we have all this discussion? A motion to approve or deny?
Anything?
We've opened the discussion, right? So,
yeah.
Well, usually it's best if we make a motion and then we discuss that from there. It doesn't really matter the motion, because you can go either way. If someone makes a motion to deny or approve, then we can go from there.
Right.
So
just to keep it consistent with what we do each month, I'll make a motion to approve the application for the special permit on 21.5 West Sutton Road.
okay, we have a motion. Can we get a second?
I'll second that motion.
All
All
right.
right, now back to the discussion.
And now the discussion, I think that there's been a lot of inconsistency, and Jamie's right. We've had this on our agenda for 4 meetings, and it does seem to be, as far as the wall goes, it seems to be, to me, pretty similar. I know that Mr. Murphy's done a lot of work to bring the roof line down. It seems to change every month, the height of the basement, whether or not it's going to be a walkout. Now we have a bulkhead, and now we have a deck on it, and the deck is 50% of the footprint of the building. So there is an awful lot going on in this little tiny lot, and the walls are really a factor, because it's building it up to quite a height, at least what I can see from going from, and I've been to this site a few times. I've walked that property, and there's a big jump from going from the neighbor on the south to 5 feet up in the air.
Yeah, I mean, I would agree the walls are a factor. The lots on the lake are small. I mean, a lot of them do have walls, even in Sutton. Some of those pictures were from Millbury, but it's not unusual to see walls like that on the lake. I guess I would argue that it certainly would improve what's there now, which is, a shack that's kind of falling down. I am disappointed in the plans. There's been, a bulkhead, a door, a raised sill. So that's a little frustrating. But I do think it would improve the neighborhood considerably, considering what's there. So.
I think that being in construction and familiar with septic systems, I have to give Mr. Murphy the benefit of the doubt that they have indeed tried all they can to lower that, what they can. And on that note, I guess if either one of the neighbors had a failed septic system, would they be looking at the exact same problem? I don't find the walls to be that much of an issue, you know, my personal opinion. I certainly agree the plans, you know, I know they've been trying to whip some stuff up to try to appease us, so they are, you know, not ideal, but certainly we could gather the critical information off those plans, and we certainly have the ability to, you know, put all kinds of conditions on this. I'm sure we could, you know, approve it and condition, you know, final set of plans that represents exactly what we're calling out. I don't think that would, they're gonna have to draw them sooner or later. I wasn't too happy with the sudden lockout, but, you know, if the sill isn't changing and the height of the building was my main concern. I think that the original plan was gonna look ridiculous there, and they've shrunk it down, and if they're gonna hold that sill elevation, then I think it's gonna have, you know, minimal effect on the abutters compared to what it could have. You know, that it's not a fence required on the walls, so, you know, I don't imagine they'd put one on just to spend money on a fence. There's certainly other properties in the lake that do have fences that are obstructing people's views, so I think that would be helpful if there wasn't a fence. I mean, we could once again condition that there isn't a fence. I don't know, I guess that's kind of my take on it. You know, I think it's a tough lot, and it's, no matter what you put there, if that's where the septic's gotta be, once again, if you're giving them the benefit of the doubt that they've done all they can do and that's where it's gonna be, then that's where the septic system's gonna be, no matter what goes there,
Yeah,
doesn't.
I mean, we've approved manchogs with tight tanks. So, I mean, there is that in the background, but I think if they can get away with a real septic, it's better. I mean, it's better for all.
I think by Title V law, if there's any way that you can put a septic system in, then you have to put it in. I would think, especially on the lake, if they feel that this septic system is better than a tight tank, which a tight tank's obviously going to release zero water into the ground and have zero potential for it to end up in the lake. If they feel this septic system is better than a tight tank, I mean, you know, the other lot we did on Manchog, they had the tight tank. I mean, that is, you couldn't even barely get the tight tank on the lot, let alone a septic system. So I think that was an extreme case on that particular piece of property. I mean, I guess I guess if we run through a checklist of a special permit, that will tell us whether or not it hits the criteria.
Yeah, I gotta admit, I struggle with this one. I've been, you know, ambivalent, feeling both sides of it the whole time, you know. I think on one hand, you know, we are balancing abutters' rights and we're balancing the property owner's rights to try to use this property for a house. I really do feel like I don't know what's the word here. The changes that need to be made to this property to accommodate the sewage system is just, it's just always struck me as way too much. I think like you gotta like mutilate the property sort of to get it up to a point where it gets this.
Mm-hmm.
I think I suggested in an earlier meeting, like he's not able to get a tight tank unless he can have a Title V. I don't know if it works the way that our board's decision says that he can't have a Title V. I don't know. I don't know, but you know, going into this meeting, I was fairly undecided. And then, like at this point, I'm leaning towards, I would vote probably no. I still just think this, it's just too drastic of an impact on his neighbors. But I'm open to discussion.
So what's the what's the alternative? If there's a property owner who can't, you know, they have to come back. They would probably have to come back for anything in that property, right? I mean, otherwise it's just going to sit there unused if they can't get a real septic on there. They can't do anything with it.
Well, I think, like I said, if you can't really move the septic towards the street, you've got well issues there. You can't move it towards the lake. And so, you know, those Presby systems, they are the latest and greatest supposedly as far as trying to make a system work in a small area. So once again, I guess, you know, I don't know. I'm not
I mean,
sure.
if we don't approve it, there's a shack that the owner can't do anything with, basically. And you've got land that they're going to sell, or like, you know, it's just going to hang out.
Until they find some solution.
Yeah.
I mean, I guess, you know, maybe this is overly optimistic. My hope would be that denial would force a different creative solution to using this property. Just like only assess what's put in front of us. And like, I'm willing to forgive the sort of inconsistencies and sort of look at the big picture, the inconsistencies in the paperwork. I get a sense for what he's going for. And I think even still then, like not even dinging him on handing in, you know, plans that don't match today or adding a deck after the fact, I still feel it's just, yeah, it's too much for me, I think.
Rick, you had made a comment earlier, Mr. Chairman, that I completely agree with, and that was that the developer has made significant effort to address the structure of the house. And that there are a lot of actions that he took to, you know, significantly lower the roof. And, you know, there are frustrations about the morphing plans and all that stuff, but I do think that if that same approach was applied, and you being in construction, you know the reality of the situation, if that same creative approach was applied to the septic, there could be significant relief provided to the abutters if, you know, if you know, these Presby systems, I've seen them. There was a system that recently came before conservation that was done in an arch so that it could follow contours and topography of land and get the square. You know, I do think that, and I'm not against this lot being developed at all. I think that in the right set of circumstances, with the right structure, but given the size of the abutters properties and this property, and it's hard to, and I think it's important that what fits in there is harmonious and consistent and doesn't impose on, the end product shouldn't be the people on either side of them having less than they have now. And I feel that that's kind of, you know, that's the impact of the retaining walls and the grades and the views and the, you know, if you have a 5-foot retaining wall with a 42-inch fence on it, that casts a shadow, right? You know, I don't know what the orientation is to the sun, but when you have a 50-foot backyard, you know, that's the only thing I struggle with on this project is that particular issue.
Yeah, one reason why, you know, I hesitate on the no is I do feel like the efforts that he's made to change the structure have been like done well and done in good faith. And I hate to like not give him any credit for, you know, listening to our input and responding to it. I'm just still not sure that brought it to a place that I'm comfortable with. But again, I'm open to discussing.
I mean, I think if you take into account the elevation compared to the other houses, it'll look the same. I get the hump for the septic. But again, it's not out of character with the lake or certain houses on the lake, not the Millbury houses, some of the Sutton houses, right? I mean, the effect on the neighborhood, I would argue, is it will improve the neighborhood, right? You won't have a system with a failing privy that's a shack that no one's living in, right? I mean, you'll have a piece of land that is usable for something. You know, is it going to be perfect? No, but it's a small freaking lot, right? And there's not much you can do on that to make it work. You know, I'm not sure about the conservation and the presby with the contours and things like that, but perhaps the lot was larger. I don't know. There's just not much you can do with it. And I just think it'd be a shame to kind of like, it's an eyesore when you go by it in a boat, right? It's an eyesore.
I'm not sure the retaining walls are gonna be, you know, they're not in front of someone's house. I don't think it's gonna really be blocking anyone's view. Yeah, they might not be great to look at from your side yard, but once again, you know, if either one of those abutters system fails, are they gonna be in the same boat? They came before us, so they asked for something from us, you know, you're gonna say no, then we got another piece of property with no septic system or that no one can live in? I don't know.
Yeah, but the other neighbors have a septic system that's failed, right?
Just across the street, I think.
This
one of them.
particular, well, no, I mean, I'm just saying they have an existing septic system. This particular property has no septic system, which is why, you know, it's just another thing they need to add to make, you know, a dwelling, right? I mean, it's just another thing that the existing structure doesn't have that needs to get squeezed into something that's, you know, the 10 pounds of stuff in a 5-pound bag.
I mean, we were there at the site. Where was the privy spot? I don't remember anything. I know the Board of Health made a determination that there was one, so that's not really an issue here, but I can't even picture it even having been there.
At the first meeting, if you remember, for the first couple of meetings, they represented that there was a composting toilet in the house, and then they walked that back and said there was a privy. I don't know.
Yeah, right. A privy outside the house, right?
I didn't see in our site
It switched.
I didn't see any evidence of one, but it really, you know, I don't know how material that is to the discussion.
Right.
Well, do you want to run down the special permit checklist and see where that gets us? Or, I mean, seems like the thing to do. Does anybody have it in front of them?
Sure. The appropriateness of the specific site as a location for the use.
Dan, I think that before we get into that, it's important that we read the sentence before.
Sure.
John kind of brought that up in connection with the last meeting that we had. Upon application duly made to the board may, and that's the operative word there, the board may, in appropriate cases and are subject to appropriate conditions and safeguards, grant special permit for such uses, structures, conditions, and no others. And then you get into the 5 criteria. I think that the element of board discretion is important to point out.
I agree.
Yep. Thank you, Jim.
So in acting upon an application for a special permit, the board shall take into consideration, number 1, the appropriateness of the specific site as a location for the use.
So I would argue it is a residential piece of property, although small. It's appropriate for a house. There was a house on there before. So I would say it does meet that criteria.
Yeah. I mean, if you see the properties on the lake too, using lots of this size to have a house is normal.
It's not unusual on Singletary and nor is it on Manchog. They're small lots.
Yeah. All right, number 2, the adequacy of public sewerage and water systems.
So there's a well. So that's, and there's a septic system.
Yeah. Number 3, the effect of the developed use upon the neighborhood. This feels like the one that's in contention.
Right.
Well, the lack of a permit, what's there now, right? There's a shack, you can't do anything with it. There's trees that are gonna conceivably grow, right? I mean, no one's gonna take care of that because it's not owned by anyone, or, you know, why would you spend money cutting down trees if you can't do anything with your land? You know, so I would argue that the lack of action would actually make the neighborhood slightly worse.
I agree with that.
It's not that I disagree with that, but I do think like wooded area is not all negative. Like I feel like the shack is like almost hard to see on the property.
Well, once the trees overgrow it, it'll be completely.
Yeah.
I think that the abutters would prefer the dilapidated shack to the new structure, but that's not, you know,
that's clear. That was clear.
Yeah.
And the trees are, you know, actually the trees are, when you look at it, the trees are, especially the pine trees, Bob was correct in that they do pose a hazard to the, you know.
They're old. Yeah.
They're well beyond,
yes.
You know, they're well beyond their lifespan.
So is that a yes on that as well? The effect of the developed use upon the neighborhood?
I would say, in my opinion, that's where I get stuck, is the retaining walls in that particular criteria.
I feel like that one's the one with the question mark on it, you know?
I mean, I mean, I'm in favor of it, right? You're putting something on the property tax rolls, you're improving it, you're cutting down those trees, not all the trees. I mean, it's going to improve people's property because there won't be a shack there. I mean, as much as it feels like it's not, and it's going to be terrible. Again, there are houses on Singletary that have these walls, right? That, you know, people have lived next to each other for years with these things. It's not out of the ordinary occurrence there. So
I agree.
I wouldn't necessarily agree with that. I think that the proximity of these walls to the lot lines, you know, I don't think that Millbury examples are relevant. I don't know what their zoning is and what they allow and don't allow in setbacks. And so, you know, the Millbury examples, I don't think apply in this particular situation. And I think that given their size, especially if there was to be a fence on top of them, having them on the property lines, the question was asked earlier about their ability to be set back. I don't even know that they're talking about climbing ivy in the foot that they have off the property line. I don't even know how they're going to install the retaining walls without disturbing the property of the neighbors. I don't know how you can work that close to a boundary. And maintain an ivy bed in a foot. I just don't, you know, but that's, you know, I've beat this dead horse enough. I think everybody knows where I stand.
I mean, does the board have the power to condition that kind of thing? Not that we would, I mean.
Yeah.
We can condition anything we want.
I know. Screening, buffers, planting strips, fences, or walls as specified by the board. Modification of the exterior appearance of the structures. Yeah.
We could say no fence, no ivy, basically, if we wanted to.
Yes.
Okay.
So how do we want to answer that question? I mean, that's where we're at. Jim feels it's not, you know, it will be detrimental to the neighborhood. Some of us don't. I mean,
I guess it comes out. Yeah.
Yeah, that's the vote.
That is the vote.
We can look at these other two real quick too.
I mean, I think we should, you know, if you all want to vote on that, and then the majority rules on that, and then I think we need to go through the entire list this way,
Right,
and see what we come up with.
what's next, Dan?
1 second. Sorry. Number 4, whether there will be undue nuisance or serious hazard to vehicles or pedestrians.
I mean, their driveway is going to look like everyone else's on the lake.
Yeah.
It's going to be a little parking strip, and they're going to walk, you know, down some stairs.
I don't know if I told you guys, I walked like with my kids and my dog just along this way to get a sense. I was actually just looking for walls a couple months ago. Man, this is not a safe place to walk. I would not recommend it.
People fly down that road.
Right.
Yes, and there's just no room. Okay. So no more than any other place here. Number 5, whether adequate and appropriate facilities were provided to ensure the proper operation of the proposed use, structure, or condition.
I mean, people were living there before.
Yeah.
Right. I mean, whether it was adequate at the time, it's not adequate now, right? But I mean, it was at one point. So I would say it does meet that. But,
I agree.
here comes the rain.
All right, so only on the, all right, so then the next phase of that is just on the conditioning.
Did he freeze again? Oh, you didn't freeze. Okay, good. You're good.
Just reading the special permit.
Typically, we'll just ask for it to be as built, but there is a spot here for, like we said, screening buffers, planting strips, fences, or walls. Any modification to exterior appearance of the structures, limitation on size, number of occupants, method and time of operation, extent of facilities. Sorry, not as built. We can do an as built, but usually we just say as depicted on the plan, rather.
Yeah,
So we would condition this as a single family, right? You know, no living downstairs in the basement, that kind of thing.
Right, we would need to condition that as well, that there's no occupancy in the basement.
You said there's a deed restriction. Does that mean that's already covered, or should we also just say that?
I would put it in.
Yeah.
And anyways, just to be sure it's clear. All right, do we want to go through any of those conditions?
I think
Right now, the only, go ahead, Dan.
we can safely reference the architectural plans, but the site plans are safe to reference, but the architectural plans are not accurate or don't match it. So we might want to be specific about a couple things on there.
Like the roof line and things like that. The roof height. Yeah.
So let's see, you want to specify the sill is actually supposed to be what number? What was it?
580.
580, right? Yeah.
580, as noted on the site plan.
Yeah. And therefore the roof is, I don't know, I can't see it. Let me see.
Before we go and condition this thing, do we vote on it?
Do we need to? Right.
I mean, I don't, hey, either way, I'm here all day.
Go through all your conditions first.
Yeah.
Then when you vote on it, read through your motion with the conditions and then do your vote.
Okay.
All right, so what would the roof height be
Dan,
then? Yeah.
I would reference, if you reference that roof height as shown on that elevation, I believe it's 25 feet.
25. Yeah, I think you're right.
And that would be from the, as measured off the rear elevation.
Yeah, okay. Rear elevation.
And then do we want to remove the ivy? That seemed to be a concern. Do we want to, they need to do some screening along the wall of something other than ivy?
I mean, I don't know what you would put there, but ivy was certainly something people mentioned that they didn't like. So I would remove that and specify screening.
So for potential conditions, number 1, screening, buffers, planting strips, fences, or walls. I should say description, no ivy on walls.
Sounds good to me.
Yeah.
And no fence, right? Unless required by.
Do we want to condition no fencing as well? Yeah, I would say no fence unless required by law, which it doesn't appear to be.
Yeah, my impression was that it's really up to John's discretion, unless required by.
Well, the way it reads,
It has to be next to a walkway, right?
I have a breakdown of the law, which yeah, that's what it was. Where retaining walls with differences in grade level on either side of the wall in excess of 4 feet are located close to the parking lot or driveway on the high side. Such retaining walls shall be provided with guards that are constructed in accordance with 780 CMR 1020 measures.
Either my connection's getting bad or Rick's.
No, it's him.
Okay.
I think we're required. We're required by law. It's probably
required by what? Oh, I think.
Yeah, he just dropped.
Okay. Okay.
I think we said we're required by law or the building zoning enforcement officer or whatever.
I'm out of time.
Sorry.
This is really laborious. I'm kind of with Jim on this, that not on the vote, but I mean, we've looked at this for 6 months and now we're sitting waiting for a Zoom connection.
He's joining back in.
And I'm out of time and patience.
Sorry, Rich.
Sorry, everybody. Me and the way life's supposed to be. No internet. Right,
What about the deck? Do we include the deck or not?
where are we?
No deck.
No deck.
No
It
deck.
wasn't on the plan.
Did you guys hear?
Listen, he's articulate. He's pretty clever to say, "Oh, my architect added the deck," and yeah, sure he did.
You guys good with the fencing? You heard a little bit of what I said?
We put we're required by the zoning officer or law.
Okay.
Rick, you may want to stop your video. It might help your internet be a little bit better. I know that helps mine sometimes.
Okay.
So we nixed the deck, we did the fencing thing. What's the next?
Limit upon size, number of occupants, method and time of operation or extent of facilities.
One
So
bedroom.
we want to make sure that there's nothing in the basement except storage.
Yeah.
So unfinished basement, usable for storage. Is that specific enough?
Correct.
What's next?
Regulation of the number.
Yeah, regulation of number or location of driveways, other traffic features. I don't think we need that. Number 6, off-street parking or loading or other special features beyond the minimum required by the bylaw. I don't think so. Submittal of a foundation as built plan to the building commissioner. I think we usually ask for that. Desirable relief may be granted without substantial detriment to public good, without nullifying or substantially derogating from the intent or purpose of zoning bylaw.
That's not part of the special permit, though, is it, Dan?
These are just conditions we could set.
Okay.
And then another one is we could set that special permit is not transferable to others upon sale of the property, but that just means that we
I
never
would
sell this.
specify like we did for that other property on Singletary, where if there's any additional modifications, they have to come back before the board.
That's a nice one. Okay. I think we're just ready to vote then.
Let's recap. As Lynn said, we should recap.
Oh, sure. The motion is to approve a special permit.
Motion was to grant.
Yes. The motion is to grant a special permit for the demolition and rebuild of a single-family home and associated site work, of which includes the construction of retaining walls. Conditions. Number 1, no ivy on walls, no fences unless required by the zoning officer. On the condition checklist, also number 4, limitation on size, number of occupants, 1 bedroom. And then under additional conditions, I've got sill 580 feet. Number 2, roof 25 feet off rear elevation. Number 3, no deck. Number 4, unfinished basement used for storage. Number 5, as depicted on site plan. Number 6, any additional modifications would need to come to the board.
Lynn, do you think we need to should we make a condition that we have a complete set of plans before construction, or are we referencing enough, do you feel, or we should
I would
have
say
a full set, right?
plans in, well, not into you necessarily, but at least into John so that they're on file as part of the, as condition for the approval.
Are there any other boards that this thing needs to go to? Or is this it?
He went to all the other boards first. He should have come to you first, which they chose not to do.
I think that may be part of the issues with the retaining walls, is it would mean that he would have to backtrack through other boards to, but I don't know for sure. That's just, something.
Yeah, there's been a lot of resistance on that point, and that's unfortunately the biggest sticking point for me.
Yeah, I would like to, like I said before, he's come a long way. He's done a lot of things. I don't know why this didn't get addressed in the same spirit as the other issues that were raised, but it does present this most significant issue for myself.
So we have a motion. Did we have a second?
I'll second the motion.
Somebody had, but,
And a vote?
all right, so all those in favor of granting the special permit, we'll start with Rich.
No.
Jim,
No.
Chris,
Aye.
Dan,
No.
and I'm an aye. 3-2. Motion does not pass. Oh, do we have minutes, Lynn? We do, don't we?
We have one set.
I saw them somewhere. Were they from June?
I'll make a motion to accept the minutes from June 4th.
Second on that?
I'll second that.
Those in favor?
Aye.
Rich,
Yep, aye.
Jim,
Aye.
Aye.
Chris,
Aye.
and
So Dan, you'll email me that decision like you did the other.
Rick, aye.
All right.
Will
right.
do.
That's it then, I guess.
Next month is
All right, I'll entertain a
reorganization.
motion to adjourn. I'll be excited.
Reorganization, huh?
I'll make a motion to adjourn.
Good
Thank
night,
you. Rick.
everybody.
Does that surprise anyone?
Thanks.
I will
Second.
second.
Aye.
Aye.
Vote aye.
Bye.
Happy
See you
4th of
guys at